Dust swirled across the Montana plains, carried by a wind that rattled the shutters of a weathered homestead. The widow, Anna, stood on her porch, her hands gripping the splintered rail, her eyes scanning the horizon. At 28, her face bore lines of loss, her husband gone to fever, her debts piling like the dry earth at her feet. The bank's letter lay on a table inside, its words sharp: pay by month's end or lose the land. Her fingers tightened, the weight of it all pressing her shoulders down. The town of Red Hollow lay a half-day's ride away, its streets baked under a relentless sun. Anna hitched her mare to the wagon, her movements slow, deliberate. She wore her husband's old hat, its brim shading her eyes, and carried a sack of quilts to sell, her last means to scrape together coin. The ride was silent save for the creak of wheels and the mare's steady hoofbeats. She passed fields of wilted grass, the drought's mark heavy on the land, mirroring the ache in her chest. In town, the market square buzzed with cautious trade. Anna laid out her quilts, their stitches tight, their colors faded but honest. A few coins clinked in her palm, not enough. She stood tall, her jaw set, ignoring the pitying glances from passers-by. Across the square, a man watched her, a rancher, broad-shouldered, his face shadowed by a hat. His name was Eli, a single father known for his quiet ways and the boy who trailed him like a shadow. He leaned against a post, his hands in his pockets, his eyes steady on her struggle. Eli's son, a boy of 7 named Sam, darted through the crowd, his boots kicking up dust. He stopped by Anna's quilts, his fingers tracing a blue patch. Anna knelt, her smile small but warm, and adjusted his scarf against the wind. Eli approached, his steps measured, his gaze flickering between her and the boy. He dropped a coin onto her quilt, more than it was worth, and walked away without a word. Anna stared after him, the coin heavy in her hand, a spark of something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Back at her homestead, the sun sank low, painting the sky in bruised purples. Anna unhitched the mare, her hands sore, the coins in her pocket still short of the debt. She lit a lantern inside, its glow weak against the dark. The letter sat untouched, a silent judge. She sank into a chair, her husband's hat on the table, and pressed her fingers to her eyes, holding back the weight of tears. The next morning, hoofbeats broke the dawn's quiet. Eli rode up, Sam perched behind him, clinging to his father's coat. Anna stepped onto the porch, her shawl loose, her heart quickening. Eli dismounted, his boots firm on the earth, and handed her a small sack, potatoes, a jar of honey, enough to stretch her larder. No words passed, but his eyes held hers, steady, offering something beyond the gift. Sam slid down, holding a stick carved into a crude horse, and offered it to Anna with a shy grin. She took it, her fingers brushing his, and felt the ache in her chest shift just slightly. Days blended into a rhythm of survival. Anna tended her garden, coaxing life from dry soil. Eli appeared again, unasked, fixing a broken fence post with steady hands. Sam trailed him, carrying nails, his small face bright with purpose. Anna watched from the garden, her hands in the dirt, noting the way Eli's shoulders moved, strong but careful. She brought them water, her hands steady despite the tremor in her heart, and Eli took the cup, his fingers grazing hers. The touch lingered, unspoken, as Sam ran circles around them, the stick horse raised high. Evening fell, the stars sharp above the plains. Anna sat by her fire, the carved horse on the table, its edges smooth under her thumb. She heard hoofbeats again, softer this time. Eli stood at her gate, alone, his hat in his hands. He stepped forward, placing a folded paper beside the horse. A deed, rough but clear, offering his name to settle her debt, his land to share. Anna's breath caught, her eyes meeting his in the lantern's glow. He nodded, once, and turned back into the night, leaving her with the weight of his offer. The fire crackled, casting shadows on the walls. Anna held the deed, her fingers tracing the ink, her heart torn between fear and hope. The plains stretched silent outside, but the cabin felt less empty, the gift of a stranger's kindness filling the cracks of her solitude. The Montana plains stretched endless under a sky heavy with clouds, the air sharp with the promise of rain. Anna's homestead stood defiant against the wind, its walls creaking as she moved through her morning tasks. The deed from Eli lay folded on the table, untouched but ever present, its weight heavier than the paper it was written on. She swept the porch, her broom rhythmic, her eyes drifting to the horizon where his ranch lay, miles off, hidden by rolling hills. Her fingers tightened around the broom, the carved stick horse watching from the table inside. Eli returned at dawn 2 days later, his wagon rattling up the path. Sam perched beside him, clutching a small sack of apples. Anna stepped out, her shawl slipping to her elbows, her hair loose from its braid. Eli dismounted, his boots steady on the earth, and handed her the sack without meeting her gaze. Sam scampered to the porch, holding out a pebble painted with a crude star. Anna knelt, taking it, her fingers brushing his small hand. She glanced at Eli, his face half-shadowed by his hat, and saw a flicker of warmth in his eyes before he turned to unload fence posts from the wagon. The days grew shorter, the lights softer. Eli worked on her land unasked, mending the barn door, its hinges rusted from neglect. Anna watched from the garden, her hands pulling weeds, noting the way his shoulders moved, strong but careful, as if handling something fragile. Sam trailed him, carrying tools, his chatter filling the silence. Anna brought them bread and water, her steps slow, her heart unsteady. Eli took the cup, his calloused fingers grazing hers, and their eyes met, brief but charged, like a spark in dry grass. Sam ran off, chasing a butterfly, and Anna felt the moment linger, heavy with possibility. Rain came, soft at first, then steady, soaking the earth. Anna lit the lantern inside, its glow cutting through the gloom. She baked cornbread, the scent mixing with the damp air. Eli appeared at dusk, his coat slick with rain, Sam tucked under his arm, both soaked but uncomplaining. Anna gestured them inside, setting towels by the fire. Sam curled up near the hearth, his eyes heavy, while Eli stood by the door, water pooling at his boots. Anna handed him a mug of coffee, her fingers steady now, and he took it, his hand brushing hers. He nodded, a small gesture, and sat, the firelight catching the lines of his face. The storm passed, leaving the plains glistening. Anna found Eli outside, hammering a new rail into the fence, his movement sure. She joined him, holding the wood steady, their hands inches apart. Sam played nearby, stacking rocks into a wobbly tower. Anna felt the rhythm of their work, a quiet harmony building between them. When the rail was set, Eli stepped back, his eyes on her, softer now. She handed him a cloth to wipe his hands, and he took it, his fingers lingering on hers, the touch a bridge across their silence. Evenings settled into a pattern. Anna stitched by the fire, mending Sam's torn shirt, her needle flashing. Eli carved a small bird from a pine scrap, leaving it on the table without a word. Sam slept on a blanket by the hearth, his painted pebble beside him. Anna touched the bird, its wings smooth under her thumb, and felt her heart ease, the dead shadow lighter in the glow of their shared moments. Eli watched her, his hands still, his eyes holding a question he didn't voice. One night, under a sky thick with stars, Eli stood on her porch, his hat in his hands. Anna stepped out, her shawl loose, the deed still folded inside. He pointed to the barn, then to his ranch, a gesture offering more than words could. Anna's breath caught, her fingers tracing the pebble in her pocket. She nodded, slight but certain, and he tipped his hat, turning back to his horse. The night swallowed him, but the offer stayed, heavy in the air. The days pressed on, the plains alive with new growth. Eli brought Sam daily now, the boy running to Anna with small gifts, a feather, a smooth stone. She kept them on the mantel beside the carved bird, a growing testament to their bond. Eli fixed the well, his hands steady on the rope, while Anna churned butter, her arms strong. Their eyes met often, each glance a step closer, building something unspoken but solid. A chill crept in, the first hint of autumn. Anna fell ill, a cough rattling her chest. Eli noticed, his brow furrowing. He boiled tea from herbs, setting it by her bed, his hands careful. Sam sat nearby, clutching his stick horse, his eyes wide. Anna drank, the warmth easing her throat, and met Eli's gaze, gratitude mingling with something deeper. He stayed through the night, his shadow steady on the wall, a silent guardian. When the cough faded, Anna woke to find a new carving, a tiny house, its chimney etched with care. She held it, her fingers tracing its lines, and saw Eli outside, splitting wood, his axe rhythmic. She stepped onto the porch, the air crisp, and their eyes met across the yard. The deed lay inside, its promise clearer now, a path to a shared future. Autumn swept across the Montana plains, painting the grass gold and the sky a deeper blue. Anna's homestead stood sturdy, its fences mended, the barn door swinging smooth on new hinges. The deed from Eli remained on the table, its edges worn from her touch, a silent question she hadn't yet answered. She worked the garden, her hands coaxing life from the cooling earth, her braids swinging as she knelt. The air carried the scent of hay and distant pine, and her eyes drifted off into the path where Eli's wagon appeared each morning. Eli arrived at dawn, Sam bouncing beside him, a small sack of oats slung over his shoulder. Anna met them at the gate, her shawl loose, a faint smile breaking her guarded face. Sam ran to her, holding out a twisted root shaped like a star, his grin wide. She took it, her fingers brushing his, and placed it on the mantel beside the carved bird and painted pebble. Eli unloaded tools, his movements steady, and began patching the roof, his hammer echoing across the plains. Anna watched, her hands in the dirt, noting the strength in his arms, the care in his work. The days grew crisp, the light slanting low. Anna baked bread, its warmth filling the cabin, while Eli repaired the chimney, his hands blackened with soot. Sam played nearby, stacking sticks into a fort, his laughter a rare sound that softened the air. Anna brought them water, her steps light, and Eli took the cup, his fingers lingering on hers. Their eyes met, a quiet understanding passing between them, deeper now, like roots taking hold. Sam tugged at her skirt, offering a daisy, and she tucked it in her braid, her smile catching Eli's gaze. Rain fell one evening, steady and cool, drumming on the roof. Anna lit the fire, its glow dancing on the walls. Eli and Sam stayed late, the boy curled by the hearth, asleep with his stick horse. Eli sat across from Anna, carving a new figure, a tiny horse, its legs strong. He set it beside her plate, his eyes avoiding hers, but she saw the flush on his neck. She touched the horse, her thumb tracing its curves, and felt her heart shift, the weight of the deed lighter in its presence. The plains quieted as autumn deepened. Eli brought a blanket one morning, thick and woven, draping it over Anna's shoulders as she worked the garden. She froze, the warmth of the wool sinking into her skin, and met his gaze, her breath catching. He nodded once and turned to the barn, his boots steady on the earth. Sam trailed him, carrying a small hammer, mimicking his father's stride. Anna watched, her hands still on the blanket, feeling the gesture settle into her bones, a silent promise of care. One afternoon, a stranger rode up, his horse lean, his eyes sharp. He asked for Anna, his voice clipped, mentioning the bank and unpaid debts. Eli stepped forward, his stance firm, his hand on Sam's shoulder. Anna stood beside him, her chin high, the deed's weight heavy in her mind. The stranger's gaze flicked between them, noting Eli's protective shadow, and he left without another word, his horse kicking up dust. Anna's hand found Eli's, her fingers tightening, and he squeezed back, their bond unspoken but solid. Nights grew colder, the stars sharper. Anna stitched by the fire, mending Eli's coat, her needle steady. He sat nearby, whittling a new figure, a woman with a braid, small but clear. He placed it beside the horse, their edges touching on the mantel. Anna's eyes misted, her fingers pausing on the coat. She rose, crossing to him, and rested her hand on his shoulder. He covered it with his own, his thumb tracing her knuckles, the firelight soft on their faces. Winter hinted at the edges, frost silvering the grass. Anna fell ill again, a fever gripping her tight. Eli stayed, boiling tea, his hands gentle as he pressed a cloth to her forehead. Sam sat by her bed, clutching his stick horse, his eyes wide with worry. Anna woke in the night, her fever breaking, and found Eli asleep in the chair, his hand near hers. She reached out, her fingers brushing his, and he stirred, his eyes meeting hers in the dim glow. The look held gratitude, trust, and something deeper, a quiet love taking root. The fever passed, leaving Anna weak but clear-eyed. Eli returned to work, splitting wood, his axe rhythmic. Anna joined him outside, her shawl loose, carrying a basket of apples from his gift. They worked in tandem, their movements a silent dance. Sam ran between them, his laughter bright, tying them closer. One evening, as snow flurried, Eli stood on the porch, his hat in his hands. Anna stepped out, the deed in her pocket now, and nodded, her eyes steady. He touched her braid, his fingers gentle, and they stood together, the plains stretching endless before them. The cabin felt fuller, the mantel crowded with carvings and gifts. Anna's heart, once heavy with debt, beat lighter, woven into Eli's and Sam's lives. The deed was no longer just paper. It was a promise, a home, a family not bound by blood but by choice. Autumn winds swept through the valley, carrying the scent of turning leaves and distant rain. The creek ran lower now, its banks lined with golden aspen that shivered in the breeze. Cain hunted deeper into the woods, his steps silent on the fallen needles, returning with deer hides and meat for the winter ahead. Clara salted the cuts by the barn, her hands steady, her braids swinging gently as she worked. She glanced up as he approached, their eyes meeting in a way that had become familiar, a quiet acknowledgment of the life they shared. The cabin stood solid against the changing season, its logs weathered but warm. Cain reinforced the roof, his hammer echoing through the crisp air. Clara gathered herbs from the garden, drying them in bundles that hung from the rafters. One afternoon, as clouds gathered, she found him carving again, a small cabin, miniature and precise, left on the windowsill. She touched its tiny door, imagining it opening to a world like theirs, and set it beside the other figures on the mantel, each one a piece of their unspoken story. Nights cooled, the fire blazing higher to ward off the chill. Clara sat by the hearth, mending a blanket, her needle flashing in the light. Cain joined her, his presence a steady warmth. He reached for her hair, unbraiding it slowly, his fingers combing through the strand with care. She leaned back, her eyes closing, feeling the tension of the day ease under his touch. When he re-wove it, tighter this time, she turned to him, her hand on his cheek, rough with beard. Their gazes held, the fire reflecting in their eyes, a depth of feeling passing between them without words. The first frost came, silvering the ground like a warning. Cain rose early, checking the traps, his breath visible in the dawn light. Clara watched from the porch, her shawl wrapped close, a mug of coffee steaming in her hands. She set another beside the door for him, and when he returned, he took it, their fingers lingering. The touch sent a warmth through her, chasing the frost from her bones. He nodded, slight but meaningful, and they shared the morning silence, the mountains watching over them. A traveler passed through one day, his wagon creaking up the path. He sought directions, his voice rough from the road. Cain stood by Clara, his stance protective, his hand resting lightly on her shoulder. The traveler eyed them, noting the quiet bond, and moved on without lingering. Clara felt Cain's hand tighten briefly, then relax, a gesture of possession and care. She leaned into him, her head against his arm, and they watched the wagon fade into the trees, the path empty once more. Winter loomed, the days shortening like drawn curtains. Cain stacked wood higher, his axe biting deep into the logs. Clara baked bread, the scent filling the cabin, drawing him inside earlier than usual. They ate by the fire, their knees touching under the table, the clink of forks a soft rhythm. One evening, as snow flurried outside, he pulled the locket from his pocket and placed it in her hand. Clara opened it, saw Lila's face, and understood the gift. Not just the object, but the trust. She closed it, hung it around her neck, and his hand covered hers over it, warm and sure. The snow fell steady, blanketing the world in white again. Clara fell ill once more, a fever gripping her tight. Cain tended her, his brow furrowed, his hands gentle with cloths and tea. He sat by her bed through the nights, his shadow steady on the wall. When the fever broke, she woke to find him asleep in the chair, his head bowed. She reached out, her fingers brushing his, and he stirred, his eyes opening to hers. The look they shared held gratitude and something deeper, a quiet love forged in the fire of shared trials. Spring would come again, but for now, they held to the rhythm of their days. Cain repaired the garden fence, his work methodical. Clara planted new seeds, her hands in the earth beside his. Their touches grew bolder, a hand on the back, a brush of lips on a forehead. The carvings multiplied, a menagerie on the mantel, each one a testament to his heart. Clara added her own touch, sewing a small quilt for the figures, draping it over the tiny cabin. The bond strengthened, unbreakable now. Cain wove her hair each night, the act a ritual of care. Clara traced the scars on his hands, learning their stories through touch. The past faded, not forgotten but softened, making room for the present. The cabin, once a shelter from loss, became a home of renewal, their lives intertwined like the braids he wove. As the seasons turned, whispers from town reached them, a bounty on wild Cain, old grudges stirring. Clara saw the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes scanned the horizon. She stood beside him, her hand in his, ready to face whatever came. Their quiet life, claimed for $3, had become priceless, a testament to second chances and silent love. Spring broke through the Montana plains, the snow melting into streams that fed the greening grass. Anna's homestead bloomed, wildflowers dotting the earth around the cabin, its walls weathered but warm. The mantel held Eli's carvings, a bird, a horse, a barn, a boy, a braided woman, each a chapter of their shared life. The deed, now signed with both their names, rested in a drawer, its promise fulfilled. Anna worked the garden, her hands steady in the soil, her braid catching the breeze under her husband's old hat. Eli arrived each dawn, Sam at his side, the boy's laughter bright as he ran to Anna with a new treasure, a feather, a smooth stone. She tucked them on a mantel, her smile soft, her heart full. Eli tended the fences, his hammer rhythmic, while Anna churned butter, her arms strong. Their eyes met often, each glance a confirmation of their bond, a family forged in quiet care. Sam played nearby, his stick horse raised high, tying them together in his joy. The air warmed, the plains alive with life. Anna baked bread, its scent drawing Eli and Sam inside earlier each day. Eli carved by the fire, his knife shaping a tiny fence, its posts matching the one outside. He set it beside the boy on the mantel, and Anna touched it, her fingers tracing its lines, feeling the weight of his devotion. She handed him a mended shirt, her stitches neat, and he wore it, his eyes warm. Their touches lingered, a hand on an arm, a brush of fingers, each a silent vow. A shadow fell with the lengthening days. Riders appeared on the horizon, 3 men in dark coats, their horses kicking up dust. Anna saw them from the porch, her shawl slipping, her heart quickening. Eli stepped out, his rifle ready, Sam clinging to his leg. The leader called out, his voice hard, speaking of debts and land claimed by the bank. Anna stood beside Eli, her hand on his shoulder, the deed's promise burning in her chest. The men eyed their unity, their rifles glinting, but Eli's stance was unyielding, his gaze steady. A shot rang out, sharp and sudden, tearing through the morning. Eli staggered, blood blooming on his arm, but he fired back, dropping one rider. Anna grabbed a shovel from the porch, swinging it with force, striking another's shoulder. Sam hid behind her, his eyes wide. Eli took down the second man, his aim sure despite the wound. The leader hesitated, then spurred his horse, fleeing into the plains. Anna dragged Eli inside, her hands slick with blood and bound as wound with strips from her apron, her fingers trembling but precise. He watched her, his eyes soft, a faint smile breaking through the pain. Night fell, the cabin a fortress of warmth. Anna tended Eli, boiling tea, her hands gentle as she pressed cloths to his fevered skin. Sam curled by the fire, clutching his stick horse, his face pale. Anna smoothed his hair, her voice low, a hummed lullaby from her own childhood. Eli stirred, his hand finding hers, their fingers entwining. The fever broke by dawn, leaving him weak but alive. Anna sat beside him, her shawl loose, their silence full of gratitude. The plains healed with the season, green, spreading wide. Eli mended slowly, his arms stiff but strong. Anna worked the garden, Sam at her side, planting seeds with small, eager hands. Eli joined them, his steps slower, his hammer resting. He carved one last figure, a family, 3 figures hand in hand, etched with care. He set on the mantel, completing the scene, and Anna touched it, her eyes misting, her heart full. Summer hinted at the edges, the air soft with promise. Eli stood on the porch one morning, his hat in his hands, Anna beside him. Sam ran ahead, chasing a butterfly, his laughter echoing. Eli took Anna's hand, his fingers rough but sure, and slipped a woven band on her finger, braided from grass and twine. She looked at him, her breath catching, and nodded, her eyes steady. He carved their names into the gatepost. Anna, Eli, Sam, deep and lasting, a vow etched in wood. The homestead was theirs now, a home built on trust, not blood. Anna, once burdened by debt, stood lighter, her hand in Eli's, Sam's laughter their heartbeat. The plains stretched endless, their story woven into the land, a testament to redemption and silent love. If this story stirred something in you, subscribe for more tales of quiet redemption. Hit that like button and share in the comments. What moment hooked you, or what kind of Western heart would you want to see next?